This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
You know, there is somebody that is judging you, probably at this very moment. They're giving you advice that is probably not what you want to hear, and is probably incorrect as well. And they're doing it on a regular basis. You can't avoid them either. And that's who is doing this? You. That's your inner critic, the monkey chatter, if you will, always talking in your mind, no matter what you want to do. Let's say start a creative endeavor. Let's say wear a different shirt today. Haven't worn it in a while. You're just feeling it and you're hearing it in your mind. How do we show the inner critic the door and send them out? Or can the inner critic potentially have some value in our lives? We're going to talk about that. She is a therapist. First and foremost, she's an art therapist, but I'm detecting that we're going to go more in the therapy direction than the art side of things today. I've learned so much with her here, especially about our creativity and squashing the inner critic when it comes to being creative. She's our professional of the year. Barbara Robertson is back with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm really sort of been feeling the energy of the inner critic, and I've given a lot of thought to that experience in my life and in my clients' lives, and even people who I've been engaged in teaching art skills with.
Hmm.
And that inner critic is a little bit of a mystery until you really begin to understand where it's coming from. So I've been realizing that it's actually possible to develop a different kind of relationship with this very sort of judgmental voice that pops up somewhere in our thoughts. And usually when we're about to do something that's a little bit unusual. So
Hmm.
my experience of it sounds like the way that you described it. It's warning us that what we're doing might sort of be a little bit outside the comfort zone, either of ourselves or the people that we might encounter. And while it sounds like it doesn't think we're capable of managing our lives or making choices, what it's really doing, I've come to learn, is trying to protect us from rejection.
100%.
Pretty conservative in its judgment of where rejection might come from. So I heard a story about a young man who was taking a science class that a friend of mine was teaching at university for students who were intending to become science teachers. And one of the long-term assignments she gave her students at the beginning of the term was, with several weeks advance notice, to ask them to do very closely observant drawings of some element that they found in nature. And it could be any sort of object that they could pick up and put down on their desktop and observe it closely and make a drawing. And she had a couple of purposes. One, to kind of help them develop their observation skills. So if you're going to be a science teacher, those details are important in the structure of what we're looking at, what we're studying. So that was one purpose. Another purpose was just to get them to kind of bring some curiosity to what may they not have ever noticed before. And third, to be able to present a representation of something in a legible manner. So along those lines, the rubric she had was no torn scraps of paper. You can't do a doodle and then tear it off your notebook page and hand that in for your assignment. It has to be on an intact sheet of plain unlined paper. It has to be done in either fine point marker or ballpoint pen, fine tip, not smudgy pencil. Has to be neat, clean, legible. So this one young man in her class seemed to be really stricken with anxiety over this assignment. And every week he came up to her and said, Miss Kathy, I just don't know if I can do this. I just don't know if I can do this. Every week, I just don't know. I mean, I've never drawn before. I don't see how I could possibly draw 5 things in detail. And she just kept saying, it's okay. You'll figure it out. Just sit down and start sketching. See what your eyes tell you. See what your hand can put down on the page. Give it a try. So finally, the date rolled around that all the drawings were due, and he came up. He was the last one in the class to turn it in, and he hands it to the prof, my friend, and she took it, but he wouldn't quite let go of it. And she described to me that they'd had a little bit of a tug of war because he was kind of reluctant to let it go. And she was wondering, gosh, does he think it's that awful? So he finally released it, and she looked at it and she said, it was really quite a decent sort of mid-level of drawing skill. I could tell exactly what he had drawn. And what he said to her next was really what took my breath away. He said, it's just that I never thought I could make anything so beautiful.
Wow. Well, I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either. And she didn't either. She didn't
Hmm.
either. I mean, yeah, just out of the blue. So his inner critic was on his back all through those weeks when the assignment, was there to be worked on, and really made it difficult for him to start. This inner critic was really afraid that his artwork wasn't going to be up to snuff and didn't want him to get a bad grade in science class because he couldn't draw. But he finally steeled himself and said, look, I don't know what his inner conversation was, but I expect it was like, you got to let me do this. I don't want to fail the class because I didn't do it. At least let me fail because I did a lousy job. Who knows what his thought process was, but somehow or other he got down to business. And the critic backed off and let him draw what he saw. And
Hmm.
he really astonished himself.
How do we shut down the inner critic?
There are lots of ways to do it, but it's a matter of really trial and error. I think the first thing to recognize is that our critics are really trying to be beneficial to us. They are trying to help us avoid criticism that might hurt,
Yep.
especially coming from outside. It's one thing to feel criticism within and say, oh, I know that's a crummy. I know that's lousy. I know that's not any good. But if somebody else looks at it and you thought it was pretty good and they don't, well, that's a whole different kettle of fish right there. So the critic is kind of trying to be on the lead with that so we can avoid those situations. But one thing to know about the critic is that usually, in terms of development, it's very childlike. So it seems to see everything in pretty black and white, all or nothing ways, because these kind of defenses develop in us when we're quite young and when our feelings can be easily hurt. When there's a teacher who wants us to do a drawing in a certain way and we didn't do it that way. I escaped from having a harsh inner critic in kindergarten. I remember an episode where everyone was doing a circle of clay and then putting their handprint in it and then bringing it home to mom or dad for probably for Mother's Day, or maybe it was a holiday of some kind. And I looked at all these, identical handprints in circles of clay, and I thought, this is so boring. So I took a little bit of extra clay and rolled some balls and snakes, and I put 2 eyes and a smiley face on my circle of clay. And then I took it over and put it where all the finished work was. And the teacher came over and said, you can't do that because when we fire these in the kiln, yours might explode because there can't be any air in the clay. So it only can be that one disc of clay that we started with. You have to, you have to put your handprint in it. But I was not interested in taking orders that day. So I said, okay. And then I redid the face and put it back. And then kindergarten was done for the day and I went home. Eventually, the pieces got baked in the kiln and brought back. And of course, there wasn't one for me because she wouldn't put it in the kiln that way. So she said, gosh, I'm really sorry, but you didn't do the handprint, so I couldn't put it in the kiln. So you just don't have it. Well, that was really fine with me because I thought it was boring anyway. But one thing I have wondered is why didn't she tell me to just make the face with dents, with fingerprints?
Hmm. It would have been the same thing, except you didn't have the extra pieces on there.
Except that, yeah, it would have been the same thing as a handprint pressing into the clay. It wouldn't have introduced any air bubbles from any, other pieces of clay that weren't kneaded as well, packed as well, and it would have worked just fine in the kiln. But
And how would you know? You're a kid. You don't know
exactly.
what can fire in the kiln or not. So I wonder, are you a rule follower now as an adult?
Um,
Like a strict rule follower?
no, no, I am a rule pusher. I'm a little bit of a boundary pusher.
Okay. Hmm. It seems that way. Why do you think that you weren't listening to the inner critic starting at an early age? What gave you the license to not listen?
One of the things was that both of my parents were very good at making things. And they did a lot of that as like because they were on a pretty low income. My dad was a teacher, which didn't create a whole lot of excess income. And so for Christmas gifts, they would make things or they would do Christmas cards. I remember them doing silk screen of a Christmas card. My mom making candles that looked like Christmas trees with lots of snow by whipping up some melted paraffin till it was foamy and then dripping it on a cone-shaped candle. And then
Hmm.
sprinkling glitter on from above, like snow falling on it. I remember them doing copper enameling. My dad worked in the industrial arts division at school, so he had access to some of the equipment that would have been too much to purchase for a one-off event. But things like that. He made a bird bath from something called keen cement, which is very much like plaster of Paris, except that it's really durable for outdoors, getting wet and temperature changes. And watching him mix this white powder into a can of water until it was the right consistency, and then pouring it into a mold for the base and the dish that was going to sit on top of the base. I was mesmerized.
Hmm.
I was like, wow, they're
But I
making,
believe you were encouraged to be creative from an early age.
yes, yeah, that certainly is
Hmm.
how I took it. Absolutely. Not that once I went to art school, my inner critic didn't start trying to make up for lost time. So that was an interesting experience. Because in art school, you go through critiques when everyone in a class sits around and has something to say about your work, and you feel very exposed and very vulnerable and very like, what made me think I could go to art school and succeed?
I've never been in that situation where somebody's going to collectively people are going to critique your work. Um, I will say in a group that I'm in, I think I shared a while back. I'm in a men's group. Yes, it's community services, leadership, and we support each other. There was an exercise where we look around the room, and for each individual in the room, others would do the pros and the cons, the deltas and pluses, and they go around the room very revealing what people think of you or think you're not sharing with them, because some would say, yeah, we know Jim over there, he's not being transparent. We know he's not. We know. But ultimately, what it came up to is the things that you say about the other person, you're talking about you.
You're talking about you.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a very, I don't know what the word is, pungent maybe question that I have never actually asked another person because I think it just would be too forceful. But what is it about so and so that you don't like about yourself? I mean, that's sort of really coming out of left field to actually say that to somebody, but that's what exactly what it's getting at.
Mm,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that. And also, let's be honest. Yeah, we probably think certain things about people. Maybe we're not fond of one particular person in our circle, or some of the things they do, or they kind of rub you the wrong way, whatever it might be. Now take a look at it, flip it around. It's probably
Right.
coming up because those little pieces you're not a fan of. The inner critic, you know what comes up for me when we
Tell
we
me.
say those words, inner critic? Comparison. You're inside your mind, you're comparing to others,
Yes.
and that's where it kind of goes wrong.
Right. You're comparing to others and you're anticipating performing for others in order to gain acceptance from others. I don't think that that's conscious, but
Mm.
I think we need human connection and we need a sense of belonging so deeply because it's really the survival strategy of all mammalian beings that is driving much of our behavior. And when we want acceptance from somebody else, I mean, we can turn ourselves into a pretzel to try and get it if we think that's what's needed.
Completely. And as I've shared, even stuff I did decades ago in terms of I wanted to be a cartoonist when I was younger, so many times ripped up things and threw it out all the time, all the time. But now that I look back, and I was still a kid, even though I was in my low 20s, they say you're not really an adult
Oh, yeah,
until
true enough.
now they're saying it's 32, but I'm, whatever. Um,
Yeah,
I wanted to be like insert name of cartoonist.
sure.
There's the comparison. Instead of now, when I look at it, you're not them. You're you. That's
Exactly.
you. I didn't look at it
Exactly.
that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And another thing that I've come across that can sort of disarm your inner critic is to approach something with playful energy. When I was really blocked in painting for a while, but when I started to just play with leftover paints on
Hmm.
palettes that my clients had, put out for the work that they were doing, and there was excess paint, and I didn't want to spend time squeezing it back into the tubes, I decided I would just take some blank paper and start kind of smearing it around. Oh, can't reach it. There we go. Here's an example. I just did this the other day. And it's probably going to get lots more layers on it. Those are the colors that were left on that day. And so I just kind of let them swoop around on the page.
Love it.
And that actually let my own creativity warm up. And to take it a step further, once I get a sort of a dense enough pattern on the page, then it occurred to me, hey, I could use this as drawing paper. So yeah, it's not lined paper like from a legal pad that I'm drawing on, but it's giving me a surface to draw on so that I'm not making the first mark on a pristine white sheet or piece of canvas. And that's
Hmm.
where the inner critic will just seize up. Oh my gosh, you're going to put a mark on that canvas? You're going to ruin it before you even start. Or, hyperbole like that. And so this kind of broke it because there wasn't anything to ruin. It was already ruined as far as the critic was concerned.
Well, when you say you were being a kid,
Much, much, much like a kid. Yes, playing like a kid. Just,
right?
and one of the significant differences is that when we strive towards something, we have an outcome in mind that we want to live up to. We want to match this idea in our mind. Well, nothing can undercut our good intentions more efficiently than that. So shifting into play gear means, oh, okay, so I'm just doing this to see what happens and then to see how I feel about what happened.
Hmm.
Do I like it? Do I not like it? Okay, I'll do the stuff I like more and the stuff I don't like less. Nobody's watching. Nobody's looking over my shoulder to see what my play is creating. It's only for me.
Now, isn't the challenge here that when we have that view of all right, I've got a blank canvas in front of me. I've got a bunch of paints. I've got brushes. I'm all set to go. I have a picture of how the picture is going to look. That's going to be a lighthouse scene. There's going to be water crashing up on the rocks. I actually saw a picture that somebody took
Oh, okay.
yesterday, and they
Yeah.
put it online of just that. It was breathtaking. It was at like 5 o'clock in the morning, sun just coming up.
Oh,
I
lovely.
want it. That's my visual. That's how I want this canvas to look. Well,
Yeah.
let's be honest. It ain't gonna look that way. It's
No, it's not. It's not. So one of the things to recognize before you start is that you've actually got a different purpose in making a replica of that scene. And that purpose is you notice something about that image really resonated with you, and you would like to create an image that represented that scene, but in a way so that the process of drawing from something that you're viewing and representing it fairly realistically in your artwork is to really allow yourself to dwell on the details
Hmm.
and to notice what is lighter, what is darker. Is there a pattern of light and shadow? What is it in that scene that is really creating a sense of energy for me, a sense of positive energy? And you are going to just naturally be drawn to those traits that stand out for you. And those are going to be somehow unintentionally, but naturally emphasized in your own work.
Would you say, coming from an artist, that if you're gonna, let's say there's that lighthouse scene. I have this picture. Somebody took it. It was online. Came out great. I'm in New York, so it's an upstate New York. I think one of the Finger Lakes. They took it. Um, to analyze it first and say to yourself, why is this resonating? Why do I like it? What is it? Is it the light on the lighthouse? Is it the water splashing up on the rocks? Is it the movement? Is it the mood? Would it be better to analyze what motivates you as opposed to I want a picture that looks just like that?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I don't think, at least for myself and the way my internal system works, that would be short-circuiting my process. What I might want to do is
Hmm.
just sit in front of that image and look, see where it's pulling my eyes, follow my eyes into the scene and feel what's happening in my energy, in my system as I look at it.
Barbara, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah,
We're saying the
yeah,
same thing. What's
yeah.
doing it? What's doing it? Why do you like that picture? What is it? You like it. You want to replicate it in a painting. And why am I even bringing this up? I'm trying to get rid of the inner critic. I'm trying to make that connection to within so we can bypass the inner critic.
Well, the other thing is remembering that the inner critic usually comes up in childhood and you are now a grown up. Our defenses don't grow up with us.
Hmm.
Stay at the developmental place that you were when they first came up. And so a part of what is also very helpful is to kind of metaphorically put your arm around the little guy and say, you know what, it's okay. This is not big stakes here. This is just me kind of exploring to see what my heart responds to.
Yeah.
And my sense is that if I do something and I'm open to my heart's response, which is like looking at the scene and just following my eye where it goes and feeling what my energy does, to me, that's a heartfelt response. And I feel like our hearts know us much more deeply and wisely than our inner critic does.
Well, it seems like it goes back to one thing that we don't say enough. We don't realize. Skip the head. Go to the heart.
Yeah.
That's where it's at. It's what are you feeling, not what are you thinking? Because when you start thinking, you unfortunately you are gonna act like a kid and you're gonna go back to the inner critic.
Right. Well,
Mm.
and thinking, if you really think about thinking is there to try to create safety for us through
Yeah.
situations where we haven't felt safe before. But if you really kind of work back and forth between your head and your heart, you can see that the head just doesn't have the whole picture, but the heart tends to.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more trustworthy in my experience. So I want to invite any listeners or viewers out there to really kind of do a little interview of your inner critic. Do an interview of your heart. See if the two of them can't join together. Instead
Mhm.
of telling dire stories, just try seeing what happens and what comes up for you when it happens.
Love it. This is what you do. This is a part of the therapy you offer. Robertson Art Therapy LLC.com. Do I have
That's
that
right.
right?
Yep, that's
Okay.
my website. Yep.
And if somebody wants to email you, I know that you have a Gmail address. What's that?
Yeah, that's brobertson.atr@gmail.com. Love
Thank
to hear from anyone who feels like reaching out.
Absolutely. Or even instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. And we've said before, no judgment. Send us what you got. If you created something, take a
Absolutely.
picture of it and send it over. We love doing that, by the way,
It would add to our delight. Absolutely.
for sure. Barbara, thank you so much for
Okay.
today.
Thank you. Take
Appreciate it.
care.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.